Liron Wilson, fight out of Millennia MMA.
Dave Huckaba, Sacramento, California. Huckaba's next generation.
I know he's a striker, has a lot of fights, about 20 fights under his belt, most wins by TKO or KO, so he's a banger.
My opponent, Liron Wilson, 9-5, all 9 wins by submission, all 5 losses by TKO. He's legit.
Expect some action.
Man, I knock people out, man. That's what I do, so that's what I'm here to do.
Dave Huckaba, 16-4, fighting out of Sacramento, California. He is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. This is his Tachi Palace Fights debut, but he's fought here at the Tachi before at PFC 12, where he lost to UFC veteran LeVar Johnson. Last time out, he defeated Warpath Ruben Villarreal by decision. Dave Huckaba, a guy that has fought in King of the Cage. He was under contract with Pro Elite. Jordan Reed, this guy has fought, on decent-sized promotions throughout the western part of the United States here.
We're talking about evolution in mixed martial arts. Well, this is a throwback. This is pretty much striker versus grappler. Yeah. Liron Wilson wants to get on top, ground and pound, look for submission. Dave Huckaba, I mean, he's been on the ground before, but he wants to just stand up and throw haymakers, knock someone out. It's in front of a partisan crowd that a lot of people are here to see Dave Huckaba, because people like big, strong local dudes who maybe they're a bouncer, maybe they were a football player 10 years ago, but people like to know a guy who he's from down the block and he can knock dudes out really badly. After all, that was one of the selling points of Tank Abbott.
Yeah, absolutely. In heavyweight mixed martial arts, Javi, you never really know what you're going to get, but I guarantee you with Dave Huckaba, like Jordan said, you're going to get some excitement for the first couple of minutes.
Well, Liron Wilson actually has a lot of stand-up experience, so I'm really curious to see how he's going to approach this fight. Does he really want to test his stand-up, or does he want to fight smart, close the distance, pin him up against the cage, which is a very Millennia Jiu-Jitsu style, drop to a double leg, lock his hands, take him down, look for submission and ground and pound on top. So it all depends on how Liron Wilson wants to fight this fight.
The thing that I think hurts Liron Wilson in this fight is even though he's confident in the stand-up, he's not a super big hitter, and I'm not sure of the chins he's got the better of them. Dave Huckaba's problem is that he's not super well conditioned, not super skilled on the ground. So if he gets tired after throwing some haymakers, you can put him on his back, pass his guard, clean up on him. This is what John Murphy did in both of their fights, for instance. But if they actually have a stand-up fight, Liron Wilson technically can probably land strikes on Dave Huckaba, but Huckaba's coming with a lot more power and I think has a much richer opportunity to exploit the chin of Liron Wilson and vice versa. But after all, these are heavyweights, and the rich opportunity to exploit a chin pretty much exists for any guy who can throw a punch.
They're heavyweights, and who knows?
Seriously.
Who knows how they're going to fight and who gets hit first.
And it's one thing to say it on a regional level, but it's got to a point that even in the UFC, we're talking about a world of mixed martial arts where Mark Hunt is a top 15 heavyweight, where we really just don't know which big brawler is going to throw a haymaker, hit the guy first, and be able to put him down. Maybe the creme de la creme of MMA's heavyweight division, Junior Dos Santos, Cain Velasquez, Alistair Overeem, maybe these guys have a certain kind of style and a certain kind of power where you look at them and go, you know, this guy's going to be able to take this guy out and wipe him out. But most heavyweight fights, upsets don't shock people for that reason and that reason alone. And as I mentioned, Mark Hunt, a vivid example of it in recent MMA history.
Yeah, I mean, people wrote off Mark Hunt not too long ago in mixed martial arts, and now he's a contender.
And going back to my earlier point, people love Mark Hunt. Love him. Hardcore mixed martial arts fans and New Jack UFC fans alike who've just got acquainted know nothing of his K1 exploits.
Liron Wilson, 9-5, fighting out of Glendora, California, training with the Millennia Fight Team. He's won 4 of his last 5, including a submission over Pride veteran Mike York. You mentioned, you were with Millennia for a long time, and you know Liron Wilson here. Do you think that strategy will be to try to get this fight to the floor and secure an early submission?
I mean, I like to tend to think that they formulated a game plan, and usually the game plans are to try to fight the smartest way possible. And I would like to see a strategy here. If he's going out there trying to throw haze, there's a good chance he might get clipped. And isn't every Liron Wilson loss by TKO? Is that the stat? If not all of them, most of them. So
looking at his losses, 3 of them by TKO, 1 by submission, 1 by
I think it's an important point that Javi brings up, too, because some of the guys he'd been knocked out by are less than stellar opposition. It wasn't that long ago he was knocked out by Tom Sauer, a guy that, well, I mean, Tom Sauer was relevant in the rings era 12 years ago and has retired multiple times. So to get knocked out by Tom Sauer in 2010, I mean, it's the heavyweight division. It just takes 1 punch, but nonetheless, it does, as Javi mentioned, make you raise an eyebrow and ask, is that the kind of strategy he wants to employ? One in which he's throwing haymakers with Dave Huckaba, whose one true solid skill is huge, huge power and being able to put on someone's face.
Looking at the tail of the tape here, 6 foot 4 inches tall is Liron Wilson. Dave Huckaba, 6'3". A little size advantage in the weight department for Dave Huckaba, 253.8 pounds. He weighed in at Liron Wilson, 227.4. Just 2 years different in age for Liron Wilson, the elder of Dave Huckaba's 37. Heavyweights in the cage. Joe Martinez will have our official introductions here at Tachi Palace Fights 12. Second coming live in Lemoore, exclusively streaming on SureDog.com.
And fight fans, we are set to go. 3 5-minute rounds this scheduled in the heavyweight division. Introducing to you first, fighting out of the blue corner, a kickboxer standing 6 feet 3 inches tall. Official weight 253 3/4 pounds. A veteran of 20 professional bouts inside the cage, he brings 16 victories, just 4 defeats, and joins us tonight from Sacramento, California. Here is the bad man, Dave Huckaba! And next, his opponent across the cage, fighting out of the red corner, a pancration fighter, standing 6 feet even. He weighed in 227 1/2 pounds. As a professional, his record stands 9 victories with 5 defeats. Fighting out of Glendora, California, here is Liron, the Icon Wilson! Referee in charge of the action, Jason McCoy.
Referee Jason McCoy getting this heavyweight assignment. Dave Huckaba against Liron Wilson. Huckaba in the yellow and black trunks. Wilson in the white trimmed with black. Early leg kick there.
Watch out for that fence behind you, Liron. Keep moving.
Huckaba takes the center of the cage.
I think it's already a curious stance for Liron Wilson. He does, whether he wants to strike or wants to take to the ground. He should be moving forward. If he gets his back on the fence, it just gives Dave Huckaba a chance to step in. One big punch might freeze him against the cage, and that's all you need if you're a heavyweight.
And it's noticeable, too, this cage, Javier, is not very big.
Not only is it not very big, it's not very round. It's a squarish kind of cage, and yeah, Liron Wilson is not doing himself any justice by backing up.
He's definitely throwing more strikes here, though. I mean, you might say cage control a little bit by Dave Huckaba, but he's not throwing as many strikes as Liron Wilson, and Liron gets the takedown.
Absolutely the right tactic by Liron Wilson. He struck enough to get his opportunity, got the fight to the ground as quickly as he can, and this is where he has the richest, and in fact I would say this is probably the richest disadvantage of either fighter in the fight. If they're looking for a disparity in talent, Liron Wilson on top of Dave Huckaba is probably where these guys are the most different in terms of skill and ability.
You see Liron here trying to get a key lock, it looks. And Huckaba able to stave it off for now. Almost retain, almost get his full guard back, but Liron Wilson able to stop that and stay in half.
Huckaba's doing a pretty good job of controlling Liron Wilson's hands, so he's not absorbing any punishment. He's controlling the elbow. See how he's bracing his left hand on his elbow so he's not getting sliced up. He's swimming his hands inside, controlling the posture, working the half guard. He should be looking to scoot his hips out towards his right, pull his left hand out, and try to get back to full guard. Liron Wilson's making a lot of space right here. He could bring his right knee across the belly and also make space.
Now you see it finally. Dave Huckaba finally controls the position. Even though he was not taking any damage there, he was just letting Liron Wilson punch him because he wasn't controlling his upper body whatsoever.
Anytime a guy postures up from half guard, I like to bring my right knee across the belly. Even though Liron Wilson's kind of sprawling his hips out, bring the right knee across the belly to create space, to pull the left knee out, and potentially he's real close to the wall right, or to the fence right here. You could use the fence to put his back up against it and look to stand up.
Approaching the halfway point of round number 1 here. Heavyweights in the cage at Tachi Palace Fights 12.
Oof. Liron Wilson threw about 5 punches. Dave Huckaba swam inside all of them and landed a short shot from the bottom that did more damage than anything Liron was throwing down at him.
we see Liron going for this key lock, and you can hear his corner say, "Don't wear yourself out." I mean, that's not a high hit submission, the key lock, but he definitely is tweaking it. Can he finish this from half guard?
In the heavyweight division, you sure can.
Yeah, you can finish anything. Yeah, but the problem with it is that, just like you saw, his balance is off. All you got to do is bump your hips. You've got the free other hand to bump him towards the side, and that's exactly what happened.
Now, Huckaba looks fresh here. Let's see if he tries to pour it on with some punches.
Huckaba's actually cut over the right eye from some of those Liron Wilson strikes, but both fighters seem to be huffing and puffing as they regain their feet here.
Huckaba looks like he's looking for a big right hand. He's looking to set it up. He's pawing with his jab, possibly trying to go right over the top of Liron Wilson's jab. There it is. Making distance. He's very comfortable taking the center of the cage. And because these are big guys in a small ring, so that's even tougher. Liron Wilson's trying to use good footwork to circle around, but how long can he maintain that pace?
90 seconds remaining, round number 1.
Now you see one of the limitations of Liron Wilson's game. He's going to circle away and circle backwards. It's hard for him to set up that takedown.
Liron Wilson was blocking a second ago high with his left hand. He was leaving the whole left side of his body open to a body shot. And his hands are down, and he looks a little bit tired.
Liron comes high with the kick, blocked by Huckaba.
Huckaba's just kind of absorbing the shots, and he's pawing at him, keeping his Liron Wilson's back to the fence, looking for a big right hand. That's what he's looking to set up. There's
an
nice
uppercut there. Uppercut backed up Liron Wilson. Left hand by Huckaba.
He's picking his shots. He's not throwing anywhere near as many strikes as Liron Wilson, but the strikes he's throwing are landing clean.
Wilson tried to get underneath that punch and get in. He does get a clinch, not a takedown. And Huckaba with a takedown. Now he's inside.
Oh, he should go to the side mount crucifix here. Liron Wilson's got to be very careful with his left arm. He's doing a good job of hugging Huckaba's right arm, so he can't posture and strike with it. But he should be careful so he doesn't get caught in a near side crucifix.
Huckaba flirted with the knee on belly, but settles for side here. 15 seconds remain. Huckaba could maybe steal this round.
It's a really interesting round. It's basically a round of two halves. Early on, Liron Wilson marked up Dave Huckaba's leg, landed some hard leg kicks, ground and pound on top. But in the last 2 minutes of the round, Huckaba really came on strong, was able to land offense of his own. I would favor Huckaba and favor Huckaba slightly because of the fact that when he landed shots, they were cleaner, harder blows. But there's no question that early on, Liron Wilson, excuse me, has already bruised up the inside of Dave Huckaba's thigh, and that was when the takedown happened.
Now we saw Huckaba pick his shots there. Here's the replay. Little takedown off the kick.
Yeah, real nice. He caught the heel, raised it up to the sky, and Huckaba went down. But look at Huckaba, swim, boom! Left hand right to the mush. So Huckaba actually landed the best strike of the whole transition.
You see Huckaba's takedown there, driving Liron Wilson to the mat. He worked there from side for a brief moment. Finished around on top, and I think it's good enough to give him that round, 10-9 Dave Huckaba.
More important than that, even if you think Liron Wilson won the round, there's no question that Huckaba came on stronger and is starting to actually set his man up.
That's
He's
true.
starting to land that left hook. If he can come with a right behind it, could be a big 1-2 knockout special, and he was even able to kickstand him, get on top, and beat him up a little bit. So Dave Huckaba, more importantly than whether or not he won the round, he's coming on strong and looks the fresher of the two fighters.
Momentum is such a big thing in mixed martial arts as well.
Yeah, he also landed a nice short uppercut. He could go back to it and set it up off the jab, especially when Liron's right here up against the fence.
We see Huckaba pawing with that jab. Liron answering with some kicks.
Oh boy.
He got hurt there.
Yeah, he landed two good right hands up against the cage, and Wilson better start moving. He better get on his horse because his hands are down.
Goes high with the kick, and Huckaba just shucked that off. Like
Huckaba does not seem fazed by anything that Liron Wilson is throwing at this point in time.
Doesn't seem scared, doesn't seem threatened by anything. And Wilson, let me tell you something. I spoke about this yesterday with you guys. Notice how close the bottom rail is, and Liron Wilson, the heels hit the bottom of the bottom panel before his butt hits the cage. So he's really off balance, putting his back to the fence.
The left hook
trying to turn it on here.
It's over.
Wilson's hurt.
It's over.
Never say never, as Liron Wilson's still holding on here for the time being. Referee Jason McCoy right on top of things. Huckaba not landing that one flush punch.
That left hand hurt him.
And there it is. It's done. It's interesting there. Huckaba put it on, and he wasn't able to finish until Liron Wilson went to his back. It was kind of an interesting stoppage.
I wouldn't call that pretty. I wouldn't necessarily call that technical or exacting. But Dave Huckaba identified one tool that was working for him. He saw that when Liron Wilson was kicking him, he wasn't bringing his hand back up, that he was open for that left hook. Huckaba started dealing with that left hook, landed it more and more and more. When the second round came, he set this all up with another big left hook that got the ball rolling and then sealed the deal with coffin nails. That's exactly the kind of thing that you don't normally see out of heavyweights, let alone ones on the regional level who are basically pigeonholed as brawlers like Dave Huckaba.
Dave Huckaba definitely coming back from early adversity to get this win over Liron Wilson. Let's look at the replay here.
So Dave Huckaba on top. He hurt him with that right hand. Liron Wilson turned over. It's a hard left hand, and he didn't know which side was up. Dave Huckaba did a really good job of backing up Liron Wilson and realistically smothering his kicks. Even though Liron Wilson was throwing kicks, he was throwing them off his heels, which didn't generate a whole lot of power, and he was laying up against the fence every kick. So what he was doing, he was almost timing Liron Wilson's bounce off the cage, and that's how he was able to land the right hands.
It's never a good sign in mixed martial arts when you see a fighter who's throwing, who's landing, but who's going backwards and somehow being dominated. You always get that sense it's about to end and end nasty, and that's another example of it. Even though he started strong, landed those good leg kicks, we identified the circling, putting his back up against the fence, and as soon as Huckaba tuned in to what Liron Wilson was doing, and really his only weapon being the leg kick, that left hook really, really got him in the money and got him to the finish.
Go ahead.
Huckaba able to get it done. Let's go up to Joe Martinez and get our official time.
Ladies and gentlemen, the end comes at 1 minute, 5 seconds. Round number 2. Referee Jason McCoy calls a halt to the bout. Your winner by KO victory, the bad man, Dave Huckaba.
A solid win for Dave Huckaba, able to get it done. I mentioned the adversity early, was able to save off the submission offense from Liron Wilson, and really towards the middle part of the first round, a tied switch, and it was all Dave Huckaba.
Yeah, Dave Huckaba started to, I think what he realized was he didn't have any respect for Liron Wilson's power. He was walking through his kicks, he was walking through his punches, and Liron Wilson, the whole fight, well, not the whole fight, I'd say the second half of the first round was on his heels, running and eventually bouncing back and forth, bouncing his back and forth off the cage, and to really do any damage, it's really difficult to do damage walking back like that. He kept circling the same direction. He really wasn't changing over his footwork, and you know, Liron Wilson had his chance early, but wasn't able to capitalize and close the deal.
Dave Huckaba putting together a string of wins. Jordan Breen, what would you like to see next for the West Coast-based heavyweight?
I'd just like to see Dave Huckaba face better and better heavyweights because, I mean, Liron Wilson's an okay regional guy, but I'd like to maybe see him against a guy with some UFC or Strikeforce experience. Even not that it's the best opponent, but this is still a fighter who's lost to John Murphy twice. I'd like to see him face a strong top position grappler, the kind of fighter that has the stand-up to get into the ground, but once having done so, wouldn't mess around, wouldn't be playing a leg kick game. The kind of guy that's going to take Dave Huckaba down and try to wear him out. Because the fact still is, great of Huckaba to get back up from that early takedown, but his guard work still didn't look great. And if there was a more talented heavyweight on top of him, he probably would have had that guard passed and might have got tapped very early. So that's the kind of guy I like to see against Dave Huckaba. He's here to throw haymakers, but I want to see if he can do it against a guy who doesn't want to do that at all.
We'll go from heavyweight to lightweight. It's time for the return of Bubba Jenkins.